Good evening and welcome to Judgment Night. The Formula Racing League SuperSprint Sunday wraps up tonight for all three championships, for Pro, for Silver and for Am. I'm Jack Prentice and I am here to take you all the way through. Now, we would normally talk to you about all of the drivers and all of their positions. We're going to have a slightly different way of doing things because there is an awful lot to get through. Starting with the AM class. So you can see the AM Championship there. I'll just make sure that everything is all on as it should be. But you've got the AM Championship being decided through the red bricks that you see there. So all of those red bricks are AM drivers, and it is close. Only 2 points separating Jamie Thacker following his renaissance from the mid-season, and Greg Wood, who has been leading since the get-go at Kyalami nearly 2 months ago. We'll just have a look at the Aston Martin. There he is. And Jamie Thacker, both drivers predictably towards the sharp end. There is a little bit more to it than that, in that there are other contenders, although they are just a little bit further away. As been provided by our admin team, we've been able to basically take you through everything coming into qualifying, which is still a one-shot qualifier. So once a driver starts their lap, that is it. That is their only attempt. Jamie Thacker on 125, as we can see, 2 points behind Greg Wood on 127. Jeffrey De Vos is also in with a shout. He is only 8 points back, the Belgian driver, who's been quietly going about his business this season. As you can see, he is in the McLaren. You can't see much of him because of the way that the pit lane is. He is 8 points back, so he does need snookers, but he is close enough to, if there's a bit of chaos in the AM Championship, he is close enough to take full advantage. There is perhaps a possibility that he may look to try and cause maximum chaos as much as possible within the rules, it must be said. But it's a case that for Thacker and for Wood, who are separated, look how close that is, by 3/100ths of a second. There is a school of thought that those two are going to have to think not only about their own races, but making sure that Jeffrey De Vos does not sneak in. We'll talk as well about the silver angle, which is also a three-way fight. It's a little bit more weighted in advantage of the championship leader, which is Renard Serfontein. So the silver drivers are the grey blocked numbers that you can see. Within those numbers, he is actually ahead of one of his main rivals, Gordon Brown, by only a tenth or so here. But Renard Serfontein has 125 points, accounting for dropped scores. 15 points are covering the top three, with Serafino Gabino, who's a little bit further back in the Aston Martin. The Indianapolis, not an Aston Martin favouring track, but he's 10 points back. And so should Serfontein get himself in a bit of bother, a reminder that a brewing qualifying, with you only able to qualify once and set one qualifying lap, can throw all of this into chaos. Serafino Gabino is on 115 points, with Gordon Brown, as we mentioned just a moment ago, he is further back on 110 points. One DNF for any of these changes everything and opens the race wide open in terms of championship battle. Renard Serfontein particularly vulnerable should that happen, and he did struggle in qualifying a couple of weeks back as well. So it can only really, over the two races, I remind you, so you've got one shorter race, 20-minute race, and a 40-minute race. One of those goes wrong, and you are bang in trouble. So Renard Serfontein, under no illusions that he is under threat. In the Pro Championship, it is pretty much decided, but for the shouting. Jared Vermeulen, as has often been the case, he can mathematically be caught, but he has dominated to such an extent that it would take a real upset, and the guy that's going to catch him, or needs to catch him, is Daniel Crossman. So Vermeulen on 159 points and Daniel Crossman on 136. Crossman, though, back in fifth and not being able to get a tune out of the Ferrari compared to both Wout Heymans and Jared Vermeulen especially. There'll be a couple of other spoilers as well. Marcelin Brustulli is always good for a scrap and always fancies his chances. The Canadian driving around in North America. Andrew Eden in that Lexus as well, in the straight line speed heavy Lexus, it must be said, in fourth position, will prove a spoiler, as he has done all season. So Vermeulen effectively needs 10 points. So Grossman's going to need to attack and will need to probably win both races. Fastest lap point as well, that can come into it, but the car's very much with Jared Vermeulen there, with Vermeulen now just needs to do effectively what he has done for most of the race, or most of the races this season. Just waiting now for the qualifying session to come through. There's a few more drivers just setting a couple laps, including Johnny Sharp. There's plenty of championship honour to play for as well, with Johnny Sharp looking to put to bed what has been a very difficult season so far, but looking a lot stronger in ninth position. Did have a very strong Nürburgring round, so that can only stand with good stead around the tight and twisty 2.8 mile Indianapolis circuit, similar to what they used in Formula One back in the early noughties, although you'll notice the chicane there that infamously wasn't put in when they didn't quite have the facilities to be able to do that in 2005. No danger of a 6-car race, certainly more like a 36 to 40 car race. Yeah, 38 drivers have arrived, with Fabio Travaglioli, another man who could provide a bit of an upset, with the Italian having not been able to race very often this season through injury and a couple of other little niggles. There is Jared Vermeulen in the Ferrari, the sort of gold and green Ferrari to represent the colours of South Africa, as best as ACC will let him. Car number 1 as well, certainly looking like the man to beat. He's got Marcelin Bruschtulli behind, so the two drivers who've been clashing a little bit in the run-up to this, certainly looking to put one over each other as well as the opposition. So a reminder with qualifying as well, that could be very key. Should Vermeulen, and it has happened only occasionally in that he's not qualified on pole, should Vermeulen have an error-strewn lap, or should he invalidate, which doesn't feel likely, he's not done so this season, then it opens things wide open, opens things incredibly for that first race as well, because you've got, or especially for that first race as well, because it's only a 20-minute race, around a 1:30 track, so not an awful lot of time for people to get their overtakes done. But Vermeulen just starting his lap now. You can take, as you can see there, through I think turn 10, isn't it? The right-hander there. That used to be a sort of hairpin complex, didn't it, before a slightly longer run into turn 10, but you can see there, you can cut the corner there. Now that's where they used to go when they were racing backwards, or effectively backwards around the oval. It's obviously famous for its oval and being a 250,000 seater stadium effectively. They used to be able to go flat out around there. Obviously braking zone there should enable a little bit more overtaking. Now Vermeulen's going to start his lap. He's got Marcelin Bruschtulli behind as well, so a couple of the pro drivers already out, and they're just about to pass a couple of silver drivers. Now those silver drivers need to be careful to avoid anyway the rather combustible Marcelin Bruschtulli. In fact, I think Renat Serfontaine has reset back to pit. It's rather sensible, because you don't want to be waiting too long. Daniel Crossman is also out and about, not far behind Marcelin Bruschtulli. So the three of the big guns, in the championship going out straight away. Vermeulen now going through turn number 7, going onto the back straight. It's a bit of an overtaking zone towards the end here. You can actually go well past the white line, and the end will not punish you for track limits there. So drivers tend to take as much, take the mick as much as they possibly can. You see, especially in Formula 1 nowadays, track limits all the range. Now there's that chicane. It used to be a couple of tight hairpins, didn't it, way back? You remember Nick Heidfeld blowing up and sitting at a deck chair in 2006, I think it was, to watch the rest of the race. Not so here. Now Vermeulen, now what's this going to be? It's looked a pretty tidy lap, hasn't it, from the South African, going into turn number 11. Clips the curb, but not too much. Need to get some really good purchase here. Don't always need to take the apex. In fact, he does hit it there, but he's got such a straight exit that he's able to get on the power and keep it flat through the final corner. Turn number 15 now onto the oval. Going to pull the car to the right-hand side just a little bit. Where's this going to go as an opening gambit? 1:34.9. No messing about from Jared Vermeulen. Here is Marcelin Bruschtulli in the Porsche. He's going to cross the line, and he is going to lift himself up to second. About a second off the pace. That is Daniel Crossman behind as well. Where does he go? He goes third. 1.1 seconds off the pace. Car number 7 is across the line. That's Jamie Thacker. Fourth. 1.9 seconds off the pace, but an Pro. He's just stuck behind Alexander Kalugin. Kalugin Russian in the McLaren, has got himself up into 5th now because Richard Gearman has gone to 4th. Richard Gearman, who could be, in another season, he could have been the silver champion, but he's not been able to put together a complete package of races over the two as Darren Davies and James O'Leary go through as well. Greg Wood goes to pole position. That could be important for the Aston Martin. Car number 11 as we go back to Renard Serfontaine if we can. Serfontaine is just about to cross the line, and where does he go? He doesn't, because he's just about to start. Luke Richings has crossed the line though, and he's 10th, 3rd in silver behind a cluster of AMS. It's a Porsche driver behind him as well, and that is Chris Gebman. So we'll see where he lines up shortly. Michel van der Waal, car number 71, is just across the line. Where's the Flying Dutchman go? He goes 5th. Only a 10th and a half off of Richard Gibbons, so 2nd in silver. And there's quite a gap, isn't there, between the next silver after Alexander Kalugin. So we're going to go now to car number 23 because he's next across the line. I think it's Jordan. Well, it is Jordan Washout. I think he's on a qualifying lap. He's certainly giving it plenty, isn't he, the Frenchman, who has been a steady improver through his time in Formula Racing League. Been with us about a year now and has gone from also ran in the AM to a mid-table, mid-grid silver driver. So that rate of progress from the Frenchman, very impressive indeed. Car 68 just behind him as well. So we'll try and see if we can get a reading on those. That's Marco Lino in the Porsche. Keeps the back end out, doesn't he, Marshall? That will cost him time because he's had to slow it up just a little bit and bring the car to the right-hand side. Yellow flag is just for a couple of people in the pits, so that's not going to matter too much. Marshall goes up into 10th. He breaks the AM stranglehold on the top 10, but he's 4th overall. The Porsche is now crossing the line. That's Marco Lino. He is to complete his lap. Renard Serfontaine is next. Now, this is a big lap because he is the championship leader in silver. He's certainly been able to complete this lap, which is more than previous efforts at the Nürburgring, especially. He struggled there. But Serfontaine goes 3rd. No, he doesn't. He goes 2nd in silver. He goes 5th overall. Steve Desire and Chris Gebman are crossing the line as well. Chris Gebman goes up into... I can't see where he's gone, but Steve Desire has broken the top 4. No, yes, he has. He's gone up into 2nd position. Missed it there, but Chris Gebman not completing his lap. So the Flying Scotsman, who was a rank outsider anyway, will not be winning the championship with that. You would have thought. Jack Barnett, meanwhile, in the Ford Mustang in the AM, getting a bit squiggly, wasn't he? Coming out in the final corner. Doesn't want to take too much of that because he'll invalidate. Keeps the car right near the wall as well, uses all the track, and Jack Barnett goes up into 13th. He's 4th in class overall. There's a cluster of cars coming over the line as well. One of them is Matt Lemon in the AM class and Dale Kelleher, and they go to 18th and 19th. Further across the line, that's car number 139, not yet setting a lap time. I think there's plenty of drivers who are just about getting out. Lee Colpitts has just got out, so we'll try and ride, I think, with car number 139, trying to find exactly where he is. And it's a hopeless task, isn't it, trying to chase after him. Gordon Brown is actually yet to leave the pit. Serafino Gabino, though, another important lap this because he is in 2nd in the AM class, so he really does need to nail this lap time. You can see he's on path from the front wheels jerking any which way. He runs very wide through turn number 4, and that's going to hamper his run through turn 5 and his entrance into turn number 6. So that feels like the Italian job just got a little bit harder. Now, car number 34 is crossed the line. That's Vaclav Bosch. We sure don't need to worry about that for the moment because that is to start rather than finish. We're looking for the number 13. That is, I think, a lap that's already been done. That's Jack Barnett there. So Lee Colpitts is to follow. He is starting a lap rather than on the lap. So we're going to try and see if we can find car 139. That is Terry Tierney. David Tom in the Silver Championship. Starting really well. It's faded a little bit for the Irishman, but he's shown up really well in what is one of the most difficult championships to debut in, the Irishman. It's currently 31st, but that's just a virtue of the fact that he hasn't set his lap time. Kruger's also broken into the top 20 for the moment. The Afrikaans driver from South Africa actually showing rather well, isn't he? 6th position, which is higher than he's been for much of the season. Terry Tierney is going through the final corner now and is going, I would suggest, to be around Luke Richings. Crossing the line now, and he is indeed just above Luke Richings. He's gone to 15th because Owen Harris behind in the AM class has bottled him down to 15th as Josh Clayton testing out the BMW instead of the Mustang. He's been a Mustang for most of the season, but he's using the Patreon treats to change the car. Johnny Sharp, meanwhile, goes up into 5th position. Gordon Brown's just starting a lap, but here comes Darren Townsend. Another important lap, this, in the all-pink McLaren, one of the Pink Panthers. Across the line we go, and Townsend goes up into 14th. He's 5th in AM, so he's just off the back of where he needs to be with Jeffrey DeFass, Jamie Thacker and Greg Wood just ahead, but no further up. I think Bacala Bosch has indeed deposed him from 14th, so Bosch in the Pro Class getting stuck in amongst the AMs. Car 884 is Andrew Eden. Now the Lexus driver showing rather well, especially recently in the championship. Just going into the final complex of corners now. He's got the Colpitts behind, which we'll try and keep an eye on as well. Colpitts has really come to fore as well in the latter part of the championship. But here comes Andrew Eden. Good exit there. Tries to leave himself a bit of room to attack the final corner. We are now in the final knockings of the session. You can see, actually, we've just finished. So this lap is going to be one of the last ones across the line. And he goes up into 2nd. Great lap time there from Andrew Eden. And great news for Jared Vermeulen because it pushes Daniel Crossman down into 15th. Lee Colpitts is now coming across the line as well. Not going to see it, but Colpitts goes up into 18th. So that is well into the, I think he's about 6th in the silver class. Gordon Brown is a man we need to watch because he's going into the final complex now, and he is 3rd of those trying to win the silver class. But another season, he would have won this quite easily because he's had the pace all season. Then he got injured, and it's kind of all conspired against him. Runs slightly wide there. That won't be too helpful, but it won't lose him an awful lot of time. Now crossing the line, where's he go? He goes 7th, so he goes pole of the silver class. He's ahead of Renard Serfontaine, so he can try and control the race from there and hope for a little bit of shenanigans involving Renard Serfontaine. Then that will be very nicely. Car 41 across the line, that's Fabio Travaglioli, the flamboyant Italian. Where's this going to put him? It puts him up into 2nd. So that's your lot because the rest of the drivers that were out there have not been able to set a lap time. So 2nd place for Travaglioli, and those two, Vermeulen and Travaglioli, when they start on the front row, tend to be fireworks between those two. Andrew Eden in 3rd position. But what it means as well is that Crossman drops all the way to 6th. So South African really just has to keep his nose clean. He can afford to lose a couple of positions because Daniel Crossman in 6th position has not really made the impact that he would have wanted. He's 4th of the Ferrari class that there has been all season. You can see 8 of the top 10 are Ferrari, so not an awful lot of variance there between the top finishing order. There's plenty of McLarens up there too, isn't there? From 11th all the way to 16th. Tends to be swamped by them. So your grid for the first race and indeed the second race, because it sets the grid for both the 20 minutes and the 40-minute race, is as follows. Jared Vermeulen will go from pole position ahead of Fabio Travaglioli, with Andrew Eden in 3rd ahead of Steve Desert in 4th. Marklin Bruce-Tully will go from 5th ahead of championship contender Daniel Crossman in 6th. A bit of work to do there for the young Englishman in the Ferrari. Johnny Sharp rounds off the first group of pros. He is 7th in the Ferrari ahead of Gordon Browning. Guess what? A Ferrari. Richard Gimman goes 9th ahead of Renard Serfontaine. Serfontaine, the championship leader in the silver class, really has it all to do. Serafini Gabino's way down, so that will do his championship plenty of harm. Michel van der Waal is in 11th ahead of Alexander Galugin, the Russian returning to form there, 5th in class. An excellent run from him, with Greg Wood taking pole in 13th. Now, he needs that because he's only a couple of points clear of Jamie Thacker, who's in 15th and 3rd in class. They're split by Jeffrey DeFass, who does need a bit of chaos to ensue. He's 8 points off the AM Championship lead in 3rd. Owen Harris has shown plenty of pace as well and is a friend of Greg Woods. There may be some team play there, with Harris in 16th and 4th in class. Vaclav Pospisil is in 17th ahead of Darren Townsend in 18th. Jordan Marshall and Lee Colpitts make it an all-silver row 10 in 19th and 20th, with Jack Barnett and Terry Tierney 21st and 22nd. Michael Coppens and Luke Richings are going from row number 12, with the return to garage. That's not going to work, is it? So we'll try and see if we can... Okay, well, we'll go through the grid a little bit later on. We're with Darren Townsend at this moment in time. That will teach me to try and see if we can get to the front there. Try and see if we can find... There's Bush Tully in 5th. There's Travaglioli in 2nd. See if we can get to Jared Vermeulen in pole before we then hop back to the spectator screen. Morgan Race actually had been in 38 behind Marcolino and Chris Gedman and Wouter Heijmans. Wouter Heijmans not setting a lap time, so Heijmans there, the Dutchman, which had plenty of pace, unable to bring it to the qualifying session. Morgan Grace as well, who actually won in the Taco race last week. Excellent performance it was at Monza in the night race there, which can always throw up a few surprises, but the Welshman, they're more than worthy of that victory. Chris Gedman in 37 as well, showing plenty of pace, and we'll have to use all that experience that he's garnered over the years, over 1,000 Formula Racing League races for Chris Gedman to get his way up the order. 38 cars on the grid, he is 37th. And let's see if there's any further shenanigans ahead. It's always a tight first corner. You can see actually it's right angled a little bit, trying to allow a little bit more space. But then there's a convergence there in turn number 2 often. So drivers really do have to be as careful as possible going through the first complexes. But they are racing drivers, so it's not always a given. So with Vermeulen there lining up, all he's got to do is allow himself to just keep it clean, try and make sure there's no drama from behind. Steve Desert is in 4th position and Andrew Eden in 3rd. So Lexus should actually be pretty quick off the line, but it's one of those that for the Ferrari, he's just got to try and keep himself out of trouble. He's got a bit of an advantage in that his championship rival for the Pro class is Daniel Crossman. He is in 6th position, so there is a little bit of leeway there for the South African, with Crossman not able to bring the pace that he has shown actually throughout most of the season. He's won a couple of races already, and a lot of that's been through picking up the pieces, but in terms of maturity, very few have been able to top the youngest member of the grid. We've only got 20 seconds to go before they set off. They are just coming out of turn number 11, aren't they? Going on to what is the oval section of this. Obviously they're going in reverse, similar to the track that the Formula 1 cars used through the early noughties. Obviously there mentioned the 2005 Grand Prix, which would probably have been solved if they'd have had this layout. In particular, Wouter Heijmans and Miguel Silva, actually, who was 31st in the grid, they have gone to the pits, so they've got a pit bank start to contend with. Now the drivers get off the dummy grid, if you like. It's a short run, it's not a full formation lap, so we're going to be going straight in to racing action now, as we'll then hopefully be able to get straight back to the spectator screen. But it's going to be now an interesting to see whether Vermeulen's gone actually quite aggressive, isn't he? He's going to have to stop and slow up with Davies. Davies actually having dropped back as well. Welshman will have to get his way back up to 30th position, but now it's going to be about keeping those brakes as warm as possible and trying to make sure that you get the best launch. You can see there he's trying to push every boundary, isn't he, for Vermeulen? So he hasn't got to get a drive through, but you can see the Italian there, which is Fabio Travaglioli, who has plenty to say about Vermeulen's prospects. So getting onto the grid now, we're waiting. You can see the famous line of bricks. We're going to wait some more, and we're going to wait plenty more before we are underway. And we're underway already. Jared Vermeulen gets a great start. Fabio Travaglioli is not quite able to go with him, but Vermeulen he's being attacked actually by Andrew Eden. Andrew Eden coming right through the middle. Marco Brustilli also has a bit to say, and Eden is going to take the lead. Travaglioli's been able to outbrake around the outside, and Vermeulen's dropped to 3rd position. Travaglioli is going to be able to hang it round the outside in 3rd before the South African comes back at him going into turn number 4, and the South African wins out. So it's Andrew Eden making a belting start in the Lexus, able to take the lead, and he'll be a very hard man to pass. Travaglioli's going around the outside. Steve Desert has dropped back into 5th position. He's behind Brustilli. Brustilli only able to gain the 1 place this time around, and Steve Desert has actually dropped to 6th because Daniel Crossman has been able to get past the pair of them. He is in 4th position, and that's just what the Englishman needed to do. Johnny Sharp now attacking Marco Brustilli down the inside. Gordon Brown keeping a watching brief in 8th, and he needs to do that because he needs to win the race. There's a bit of contact there between Steve Desert and Johnny Sharp. Steve Desert flashing away. Gordon Brown's getting involved in this. I don't think he wants to if he can avoid it, with Brushtilly and Sharp getting involved as well. They're 3 wide now because Renard Serpentine has gone up the inside. He's backed out of it just for the moment. But Steve Desert having a bit of a run at Gordon Brown. Now, Brown is pretty vulnerable here. The leader of the silver class, but not the leader of the championship. He's just been able to get away with letting Steve Desert through for what is 7th on the road. And Serpentine has been able to drop in behind. So the South African has Gordon Brown right where he needs him, because 2nd will do across the piece, especially with Serafino Gabino having dropped all the way. Well, he was 28th. So Gabino's title charge looks done and dusted pretty much from the get-go, doesn't it? Andrew Eden leads, and he's got a decent gap, hasn't he, to Jared Vermeulen. Vermeulen having to deal with Fabio Travaglioni. Now, these two might actually be able to hold each other up, and that might allow the Englishman Eden through. But it's fine as far as Vermeulen's Pro Championship is concerned, because Daniel Crossman, I remind you, 23 points back and in 4th position. So 2 places, not points, 2 places behind the championship leader. Now Vermeulen looks like he's going to have a run at Andrew Eden, which we'll go back to shortly. But the Ferrari much, much quicker through the first sector. It's just that long straight in which the Lexus is going to be able to disappear. As long as it doesn't mess its brakes up, then I fear that, well, as far as Vermeulen is concerned, I feel that Andrew Eden might just have the legs. You see him clambering all over the back. There's been a couple of drivers who've been held back, and that is Marco Lee. No, it isn't. It's Miguel Silva and Wouter Heijmans. Wouter Heijmans way back, but this is probably the worst track, isn't it, to have a pit lane start. Now Vermeulen's going to go up the inside, try and see if he can surprise Andrew Eden. Thinks better of it. Now he's going to want to get away, but he doesn't want to get any kind of penalties. So it's kind of important as he goes wide, Andrew Eden, and that does allow Vermeulen through, but he's going to have the inside, and Eden seems to have backed out. I don't know what's happened, but Travaglioni's off into the wall. He's into the wall. He's into the wall, and he's dropped to 3rd. He's going to have a run, or be run at, by Daniel Crossman, who's got the fastest lap. Jared Vermeulen has got past Andrew Eden, so the brakes on the Lexus letting him down. I said, as long as it wasn't a mistake, that he'd be able to hang on. That's not the case. He has made a mistake, and through he goes to South Africa. The suddenly order is restored as far as he is concerned. Markley Brushtilly is not a man who is with any kind of order at this moment in time, because he's got Steve Desert all over the back of him. Gordon Brown, meanwhile, leading the silver class, but it's Renard Serpentine behind. Brown's 15 points behind Serpentine. And at the moment, he's not gaining enough places or enough points on him to really put him under pressure going into the 2nd race, a 40-minute race a little bit later on, which will be just as important for those as this. Now, Steve Desert is going to have a look, isn't he, at Marco and Brushtilly. Goes down the inside, thinks better of it, the Dutchman, Brushtilly, who has been fairly chirpy in the chats in recent days, certainly having to get chirpy on the track with Steve Desert actually running slightly wide, isn't he? But able to bring that back in, the Dutchman in the Ferrari. And to take you back actually to the AM Championship, because Jeffrey de Vars has got up into 12th position. He leads the AM Championship, he leads the AM class. He needs 8 points on Greg Wood, and he needs 6 on Jamie Thacker in order to be able to pass him. Now, Jamie Thacker being ahead of Greg Wood could be very, very key indeed. They're separated by 2 points. Wood knows he's got to get past him. Darren Townsend up into 13th. Excellent start from the Welshman as well to get into 2nd in class. Now, Vaclav Poshmigil has had a rotten run, and now he's going to allow Jamie Thacker through. Is he down the straight? The Ford Mustang, probably the quickest car in a straight line. The Aston Martin of Wood is going to try and make a championship move. Is he? Not quite, but Poshmigil is going to turn in. He's going to turn in ahead of Wood, but crucially behind Thacker. That could be the AM Championship taking a really decisive turn, even this early in race number 1. Terry Tierney's got up to the back of that as well. Excellent stuff from the Irishman. He's 19. Poshmigil goes wide. But can Greg Wood get past him? No, he can't. The former commentator having to settle for 18th at this moment in time. There's further round interest back. Jack Barnett looks like he's holding off the attentions of Marcel Basler in the Ferrari, Buzzer in the Pro class, and Jack Barnett in the out wide. Again goes back Porsche going anywhere but forwards, and now round the outside goes Greg Wood, going into turn number 8, I believe that is, and a great move there from the commentator of so many Sunday seasons. And now he's going to try and set off after Jamie Thacker, and he's going to try and see if he can get third place in class. Now, Thacker hasn't got any drop scores to really take into account because he's had a couple of rotten races at the start of the season. It's actually a remarkable run that's seen him get back into contention. Tierney's going up the inside of Porsche, but to no avail. I think it's much to hold off Jordan Marshall in 20th with Tierney. I think about 7th in class. Lee Colpitts has got himself up into 5th position in class, 14th for the understated Englishman, ahead of Michel van der Waal. Van der Waal, who dropped back just a little bit, hasn't he, the Dutchman? So not good from his perspective. Jack Bermuda now gets further and further away in the lead. Go down the inside again goes Greg Wood, trying to make that move on Jamie Thacker, and I think this could be probably the key battle. Renard 17 has dropped back from Gordon Brown in the silver class, and we'll keep an eye on it, but this, I think, is probably going to be the key battle because there's fans just ahead of this. Kalugin's got a bit of a train behind him, so is Richard Gearman, actually a little bit further ahead, but a bit of a trade behind 11th and certainly 10th, involving Jeffrey DeFaas, Darren Townsend, Lee Colpitts, Michael Vandal, Michel van der Waal, ahead of Thacker and ahead of Wood. And this is all excellent news for Jeffrey DeFaas, because if DeFaas can win the race, and this race and the next race, then it's AM Championship glory. If it stays like this, Wood goes down the inside again, but never going to work. You don't want to be too desperate, because if you make a desperate move, you've got Jack Barnett a couple of places back, and certainly within striking distance. If you go off, and that just hampers your progress. But you've got then Vian Kruger and Matt Lemon as well a little bit further back. Owen Harris has dropped way back, so he's not going to be a factor in the AM Championship, certainly not as far as Greg Wood is concerned anyway, because one would assume with their alliance as it is that there would possibly be some cooperation, those two owning another league together. Now Wood is going to try and see if he can get a run through the final corner. Goes slightly wide, doesn't he? So going to want to bring that back in. The Ford Mustang looking a lot more planted off the corner, off of the final corner, and that's causing havoc as far as the Aston Martin is concerned. It's DeFaas now who's dropped back. He's got a bit of a train behind him. It's down the inside again. Goes Wood. Oh, he's made contact with Thacker. Oh, that was never going to work. And unfortunately, Greg Wood, well, ironically, it's probably got him the championship, because he's spun Jamie Thacker, who does not have, he waits and he waits and he waits, but he does not have a drop score to play with Jamie Thacker, and he's dropped back behind, but he's got dropped back, that's Chris Getman in the Porsche, and he was 30th, so he's dropped back behind Kruger, he's dropped back behind Lemon, he's dropped back behind Owen Harris, and he's dropped back, I think there's Dale Kelleher involved. Kelleher's just behind, so in terms of the AM class, Wood has stopped himself. But, yeah, I think he may have a little bit of explaining to do in the official steward's room a little bit later on, I'm afraid, for him. But, so he's dropped back. That's Barnett in 3rd, Kruger in 4th, and Lemon in 5th in the AM class. So Harris set 6th. Thacker's dropped back to 7th, and now he's got Dale Kelleher trying to go up the inside. Kelleher's not got any skin in the game in terms of a championship, but he won't be reckless. He's not a reckless driver, Dale Kelleher, so there'll be some care applied here. Wood has dropped back. Where's he dropped back to? He's 33rd, so he's behind Dreadlock Steve, he's behind Darren Mark Davies, and this is the chaos that we were mentioning a little bit earlier on. Jeffrey DeFaas, he could probably afford to finish 2nd even now, because Darren Townsend, although he's 7/10 of a second behind, the next car in the AM class is in 20th, so DeFaas, if he wins this, gets himself right in the championship, provided he then keeps himself out of trouble. A reminder, the Belgian qualified in the top 3 in the AM class, so he's in a very good position all of a sudden to perhaps nick the championship from both Greg Wood and Jamie Thacker. So we'll have a look at the silver class. Mark Bruce Tully is holding up a bit of a trade. He's pro ahead of Steve Desert. Steve Desert in 6th, but it's having consequences for both Gordon Brown and Renard Serfontaine. Gordon Brown's dropped back a little bit from Steve Desert, but the silver driver Brown needs a little bit more chaos than what he's getting. It needs actually something to happen similar to what's just happened to Jamie Thacker. Now, Renard Serpentine can afford to sit in. He can afford actually to lose the place to Johnny Sharp. He can probably afford actually to lose to Richard Gearman if he so desires, because he's got 15 points on Gordon Brown. He's got 10 on Serafino Gabino, but you have to go all the way back to 23rd and about 8th or 9th in class to find Serafino Gabino. So the Italian in the Aston Martin not getting the job done on this occasion, as Brown goes defensive just about into turn number 12. The Scotsman in the Sky branded Ferrari is racing injured. He's still carrying an ankle injury from a rock climbing accident that befell him a couple of weeks ago. He goes to the inside already, trying to break the toe. Now he'll only allow one more move, which is a more gradual move that you see there, so that's perfectly legal. Down the inside goes Johnny Sharp on Renard Serpentine, but Sharp there rather sensibly ducking in behind. So Sharp there, he's not worried about the Silver Championship at all. Why would he? He's in the Pro class, but obviously you don't want to ruin any championship chances, as per what has happened potentially in the AM class. So Jeffrey DeFar still leads that. He's 3/10 clear of Darren Townsend. Townsend in 13th on the road, but second in the AM class. They've got Lee Colpitts just behind that. BMW, not a particularly friendly car around here. He's got Van der Waal and Luke Richings for company, so that's 5th, 6th and 7th in silver. Jordan Marshall a little bit further behind with Marcel Basler in 17th and meet in that particular sandwich. And Jack Barnett is up into 19th. So there has been a little bit more commotion, but nothing for the championship contenders. Jack Barnett there trying to hold off the pro driver that is Josh Clayton. Clayton trying out a BMW, which has been lesser spotted in. The Englishman from the Midlands struggling to make an impact on Jack Barnett at this moment in time. Clayton, a very clean and fair driver he is, trying to have a look around the outside there. I think that's going to work for you, Josh, I'm afraid. You've got Terry Tierney behind him in 21st overall, and we'll see. We'll go back to the battle at the back shortly. Well, say battle at the back, battle between the leading AM drivers in the championship, but that has dropped back to 28th and 30th. All the races in strife. He's dropped to right at the very back, isn't he? The Ferrari driver, the Welshman in the Ferrari, has dropped to 33rd, 34th, isn't he? I think that is. So yeah, 33rd for the Welshman. So something's gone wrong in his world, I'm afraid. Now, third is Jack Barnett in the AM class. He's 19th overall. He's got Clayton, he's got Tierney, and he's got Gabino all behind him. Now, you can see in the background that Van Kruger's also there. He's 4th in the AM class. As down go the inside goes Josh Clayton. Very clean racing there as Barnett tries to come back, but the AM driver is going to be outwitted, I'm afraid, by the man in the Pro class, Josh Clayton, up into 19th. So he reigns 3rd in class. He reigns 3rd in the AM class. You've got Van Kruger in 4th in the AM class. He's 23rd, ahead of Matt Lemon, who is doing a bit of a job for Jamie Thacker. Thacker's got up into 6th position, hasn't he, in class, with Wood in 8th. Now, Harris behind Kruger and Lemon, that is, as Matty Lemon actually has dropped back 3 or 4 seconds off the back of Kruger. So Lemon's in 5th in class, Thacker in 6th, in 7th, behind Owen Harris in 6th. Harris is going to try and get past Chris Getman, who's in amongst all of this, and Harris has looked down the inside. So that's still got a little bit of time to run. There's contact made by Chris Getman. That spun Matty Lemon, and that might be the break that Jamie Thacker in particular needs. Chris Getman making contact. I think he's had to carry on his merry way, but Matt Lemon having to drop he goes. And Matt Lemon has had to, well, he's I reckon, about 10th in class. He's dropped right back to the mid-30s, isn't he? Matty Lemon, he's behind Dreadlock Steve, he's behind Darren Mark Davies, O'Leary and Coppens. It was a really awkward place. He's 36th, isn't he? So, yeah, disaster really for Matty Lemon. He's doing rather well, but unfortunately not able to maintain that. So Thacker's up into 6th in class now, and he is 26th, as Jack Barnett's dropped another position to Terry Tierney. So Barnett's 3rd in 21st, Kruger 4th, 23rd. Chris Getman's having a look down the inside of Owen Harris, who is going to see position. Is he the Englishman? No, he turns across. The Porsche is up the inside, so has a bit of right to space, which Harris has left him. There's still a little bit more to sort out here, because down the inside through turn number 4 he goes, and Chris Getman not able to make the move stick on this occasion. So Kruger up ahead as well. It's got connectivity issues. You can see there's ping aplenty, and that might cause a few issues further back. Andrew Eden has been relieved of second, by Fabio Travaglione. He's dropped back to third, and now he's got Daniel Crossman behind him. Crossman's got to just try and get as many positions as he can and hope for some bad luck, like a disconnect or the like from Jared Vermeulen, to really have any chance of winning the championship now, because Vermeulen, with this result of the win, is probably going to confirm that championship, all bar the shouting. You just then need to finish effectively to wrap that championship up, with Vermeulen now 5 seconds clear of Travaglione and a further 4 ahead of Andrew Eden. Crossman's being rather fair with the Lexus, even though there is plenty of frustration going on inside that helmet for the Englishman. Marco Limbrus-Tully, the Ego has landed, and the Ego has landed in 5th position so far for the Canadian, who is in 5th ahead of Steve Desert. Those two haven't been together throughout most of the race. And Renard Serfontein now having a look at Gordon Brown once again. He doesn't need to, but if you can try and get past him, it kind of eliminates any issues for you behind, because they'll affect your rival, your competitor, an awful lot more. But Serfontein in 2nd in silver and 8th overall. He's doing a good job, driving a mature race whilst trying to stay as aggressive as he possibly can. Got 2 laps to go by my reckoning after this one, so the South African looking to see if he can rubber stamp his dominance on the silver class, with him being by far the most consistent, even if he hasn't always been the quickest in terms of pace. The South African, he's been an impressive championship contender so far, and he's certainly another man who's grown. We talk about it an awful lot with Formula Racing League. Plenty of drivers have grown. Marshall, I mentioned earlier, having gone from a bit of a no-hoper in the AM class to a solid midfield silver driver as one of them. Alexander Kalugin, another man to have progressed from AM to silver recently. And Jack Barnett, another man to be finding his feet in the AM class. Just 3 examples. I could list an awful lot more, with Richard Gibbon, another in the Ferrari category, in 3rd in the silver class, 10th overall, being another such example. Darren Townsend has got past Jeffrey DeFast. DeFast has dropped back to, well, he's 2nd. It's not disastrous. He's 2nd in the AM class, and that's still going to be a very good result, because he's still going to gain some precious points on those around him. But Townsend going into the lead in the AM class, and he was a championship contender last time around, Darren Townsend. Not quite this time, but he's still in with a chance of making, you can see, obviously making as much noise and as much mayhem as he possibly can in the pink McLaren. But he's 12th overall, and more importantly, leads the AM class. So that's good work from the Welshman, with Lee Colpitts now the next to have a go at Jeffrey DeVos, who can afford to drop all the way back to 20th, because that's Jack Barnett in 21st. He's the next AM driver, and he is in 3rd, with Serafino Gabina right behind him. Jamie Thacker, Owen Harris and Vian Kruger for company. So Barnett's holding up a couple of drivers, and he's holding up Gabino with Kruger just behind. Owen Harris, I think, is actually holding up Jamie Thacker. Is he? No, I'm being a little bit unkind. That's Wouter Hymans now trying to see if he can get past. Now, Hymans not known for his patience, so if you're Thacker, watch out, because he's going to go down the inside, and that could be actually quite painful for Jamie Thacker. He stays out of trouble. Greg Wood actually just behind him now, so he's recovered a little bit, actually courtesy of Chris Getman making the contact with Matty Lemon a little bit earlier on. Getman appears to have given the place back, so it's about as much as you can say in favour of the Scotsman with that particular collision, as Wouter Hymans there, who's started from the pit lane. He's going to have to do that again, so it's going to be further problems for the Dutchman. Now we are on to the final lap. Jared Vermeulen is just halfway through thereabouts, isn't he? The final lap to wrap up the win and effectively wrap up the Pro Championship. We had the overall one, which is slightly different rules, wrapped up a little while ago, but Vermeulen now certainly in position to wrap up the Pro Championship. He's just going to keep it as clean as he possibly can, and as clean as he has throughout the race. Well, certainly this first race, he's going to have to do that again in the second race, and it'll be easy street. He doesn't even need to win it, but going into the final corner and the final complex, the South African Jared Vermeulen is going to rubber stamp this Pro Championship. And now Through the final corner he goes. He can afford to get out and push it. He can afford to boil the kettle before crossing the line. Javi Bermuda wins round number 13, race number 1 of round number 7, to effectively wrap up the Pro Championship in the SIMNET Super Sprint Sunday. Second for Fabio Travaglioni, and what could have been for the Italian this season. Daniel Crossman takes third, probably not enough, but a good effort. He did get past Andrew Eden in the end. Markelin Bruscelli, the Ego lands in 5th, ahead of Seed Gazere in 6th. Gordon Brown wins the silver class race, but he will need Renard Serfontaine in 2nd to be a lot further back if the Scotsman is to take honours in the Silver Championship. Richard Gibbon and Johnny Sharp complete the top 10 ahead of Alexander Kalugin. Darren Townsend wins the AM class in 12th. He's ahead of Lee Colpitts and Marcel Bussell, but Jeffrey DeFast actually dropping to 15th, but it doesn't matter. He's still 2nd in the AM class. Luke Richings crosses the line in 16th ahead of Josh Clayton and Jordan Marshall. Terry Tierney in 19th ahead of Serafino Gabino in 20th. Kat Barnett 3rd in class and 21st overall. Vian Kruger was 4th in the AM class and 22nd ahead of Wouter Heymans in 23rd, with 5th in the AM class going to Owen Harris and Jamie Thacker's race somewhat ended really by Greg Wood. Those two drivers, first, second in the AM Championship, really opened the door for Jeffrey DeFast, haven't they? They were in 5th and they were in 6th and 7th in the AM class, with Morgan Grace 27th, Dale Callagher 28th, ahead of Darren Mark Davies 29th, 30th for Michael Coppens ahead of Marco Lino and Vaclav Poschwagil in 32nd, James O'Leary 33rd ahead of Big L Silva, who started from the pit lane. Chris Gedman ends the race in 35th ahead of Matty Lemon and Michel van der Vol. Van der Vol, we didn't see what happened to him, but he dropped way back, and Dreadlock Steve is the last of the finishes, lap down, but he is 38th overall. We've got a couple of minutes break, which we will take, and we will join you in just a moment for race number 2. Welcome back with 1 minute to go until the start of race number 2, and I am delighted to confirm that we have a new silver champion in the Super Sprint Sunday. Gordon Brown's challenge was great, but not quite great enough, and Ridart Serfontein is your champion for season 18 of the season 21 of the champion of the Sunday Sprint champion in the silver class, and an excellent drive it is too, as we can see now. Hopefully, if we could just one moment whilst it catches itself up. Yeah, perfect. And we can see, sorry, a bit of a technical hitch. So we can see now that Ridart Serfontein is racing only for Pride. Gordon Brown unable to stop the South African juggernaut, with Gordon Brown now racing for Pride and Pride only, with Jared Vermeulen, the other man, to have confirmed his own championship in race number 1, which means that all eyes were on the AM Championship, with Wood obviously crashing into the back of Jeffrey DeFaas. That means that the gap is 1 point between himself and Jeffrey DeFaas, and 5 between 1 point between himself and Jamie Thacker, and Jeffrey DeFaas only 5 points further back, notwithstanding any penalties that may be awarded and notwithstanding the dropped scores. So Vermeulen now going through the final corner now to lead the pack for 40 minutes of race number 2. There is Fabio Travaglioli, and there is Andrew Eden. Now, Eden in the Lexus obviously got that jet-propelled start. Mark Bristol was able to follow him, but only briefly. Now, can the Lexus get ahead of the 2 Ferraris? It's certainly the quickest car in a straight line. We shall see now whether or not he can put that to good use. With the line just coming up, it's going to come up just before the yard of bricks, so we'll wait, and we wait some more as the cars get onto the grid, and we will be go. Drive-through penalty as well already for car number 19. We'll find out who that is. But Jared Vermeulen gets a good start, and Andrew Eden nowhere to be seen. He's just about to pull out now. He's going to make it 3 wide going into turn number 1, but he's going to have to back out. Fabio Travaglioli's the first to turn, and he turns ahead of Jared Vermeulen. South African's fine with this. He just needs this to stay as clean as possible. He's going to have a run down the inside of Travaglioli going into for the Italian. Actually closes him off there. Andrew Eden's forced to defend backwards rather than forwards. I think car number 19 was Serafino Gabino, so that's his challenge for second. All but done. The Italian came in with grand ambitions, but will have to settle for bronze at best. It's Steve Desert who got up into 4th briefly, but back to 6th. Martin Bristol and Daniel Crossman are 4th and 5th as we go through the first sector, with Johnny Sharp in 7th. Gordon Brown having been deposed from the lead of the silver class by your new champion Ridart Serfontein. Gordon Brown goes up the inside to try and see if he can get past the South African. 2 wide there between, I think it's that Alexander Kalugin. It is Kalugin. He's 2 wide with Michel van der Waal, and van der Waal, actually the Flying Dutchman there, loses a bit of ground, doesn't he, but able to stay ahead of the Russian rocket. Now it's Greg Wood ahead of what looks to me to be Darren Townsend. Jeffrey DeFaas is in strife, and he's at the back, so the Belgian has dropped out of contention for the moment. We've got 38 minutes to go, but that really does feel like a hammer blow for Jeffrey DeFaas. He's back to 35th. He's effectively last on the road, with Miguel Silva and Owen Harris the only AM drivers behind him. Wouter Heijmans is just making his way through the second sector. So Greg Wood is all of a sudden well in position to win the AM Championship, with Darren Townsend in 14th, second in the AM class, and Jamie Thacker is in 15th and third in the AM class. It's Jack Barnett behind, so Barnett not getting involved in any shenanigans there. It's Lee Colbit's in 17th as well, so a good start for the Englishman there. He's into 6th position on in class, and 17th on the road, with Luke Richings, Matt Official following in behind. Now wide goes Greg Wood. We're going to end up staying for most of this, because this is really the key battle now. The last championship to really be decided is Greg Wood Greg Wood and Jamie Thacker, with Jeffrey DeFaas now out of it. It's the AM Championship that is on the cards. Townsend, though, will not have any qualms about trying to get past Greg Wood, because Townsend, whilst he's not in the AM Championship fight, he is certainly in the running for what would be a double victory, and a very welcome one it would be for the Welshman. Serafina Gabin has cleared his drive through, but look how far back he is. Fabio Travaglioni remains in the lead. We'll go back to that shortly, but Garen Vermeulen, they're not making an effort to pass as of yet. And down the inside actually goes Alexander Kalugin, trying to get past Michel van der Voort. There's contact, and it spins Kalugin, and now wide goes Wood, and through goes Townsend. Townsend's going to try and go around the outside. He is, but Thacker's got his nose in there. Thacker keeps it rather cleaner than earlier, but Townsend does go wide, and now they're going to be side by side. This could be just what Greg Wood needs, and he's very happy to get away in the Aston Martin. Now the McLaren versus Ford. It's likely to be the Ford that wins out in the drag race down the straight. Townsend trying to keep it to the inside and will have to be as late on the brakes as possible. He does keep it quite late on the brakes, and the McLaren is first to turn into the first corner, and Jamie Thacker is now once again stuck behind an obstacle as far as he's concerned in terms of getting into the lead of the AM class. Whoever wins between Thacker and Woods is effectively the champion, with Townsend a bit of a roadblock ahead of Jamie Thacker, so Thacker's going to have to get him dealt with pretty quickly. Richings, Alexander Kalugin there a little bit further back, so Kalugin not dropping all that far. He was going for fourth, he's now going for fifth in the silver class. Jack Barnett's dropped back a fair bit with Vaclav Pospisil and Lee Colbert, so those three have hit dramas, haven't they, going into the first sector. They've dropped, haven't they, all the way back. Colpit's races off and wide. Who was that? That was Kalugin, I think, that's gone off, and again having to bring himself from the brink of elimination. Now Townsend's dealt with the attentions of Jamie Thacker. He's going to have to try and see if he can set about Greg Wood. So Townsend's the spoiler here, but no more. Now, can the Welshman get in ahead of Wood, or is he going to be able to attack, or is he going to end up letting Thacker through? There's no gain in terms of pride for Townsend by holding up, but he's certainly very much on the attack rather than defence, the McLaren. So 13th he is, second in class. I remind you that those with the red mark numbers are the AM class. The silver class is the sort of grey numbers, and the light grey numbers are the pro drivers that we'll see a little bit more of a little bit later on. But Thacker's so quick in that Mustang down the straight, isn't he? There's a good couple of tenths on the McLaren. The McLaren not the quickest in a straight line. But this is good for Wood because he's got 2.5 seconds between himself and the next car, which means that he can effectively run his own race, provided that Townsend doesn't get involved with him too much. Then Wood, who has been leading the championship the whole way through, so would be considered a worthy champion, has just got to manage his own race and make sure that there's no mistakes from his end. I think he might just have it, although we've got 34 minutes to go. That is a long, long way to go around the oldest racing circuit in the world in Indianapolis. Certainly the oval is anyway. The infield section certainly a slightly more modern twists to it, as Wood turns its way through the complex at the end of the second sector. What can he do in terms of building that gap? Townsend's dropped back by 3 or 4 tenths. Bernard Serpentain's dropped back behind Gordon Brown, hasn't he? So Serpentain now in 9th, second in silver, but fair second place would have been just what the doctor ordered for the South African. He's just ahead of Richard Gimon and Michel van der Voort, with Greg Wood in 12th overall, but leading the AM class, which is all that he's going to care about. Now, Townsend, you can see, gets an awful lot of time in that final sector, doesn't he? He's not the quickest in the straight, but certainly through the final complex, if you like. The final corner, he's not gained an awful lot there, but he certainly appears to have the upper hand, with Thacker now a couple of tenths behind. It's about waiting now, because the 40 minutes will have a bit of an effect on the tyres. It will have a bit of an effect on driver concentration as well, because it's slightly that bit longer, and especially when you've got a bit of pressure on, as he has, both Wood and Thacker, then that matters a little bit more. So Wood leading the AM class. I'll remind you that the Pro and the Silver classes, their championships wrap up a little bit earlier on. Bernard Serpentain won earlier on, didn't he, in the Silver class. He was second overall, but he won the championship, and Garen Vermeulen having long since wrapped up the Pro, having that with victory over Daniel Crossman. Now it's all about the AM class. Who can win out here? Because Woods now has you wouldn't say it's commandingly, but he's got a sensible enough gap over Townsend and Thacker. They're about 8 tenths apart each, aren't they? And Wood is dropped back by about a second to Vanderbilt. That's probably actually for the best. As long as he doesn't then cause himself any issues with Townsend and with Thacker, then he should be fine. There's Luke Richings in 15th, in 5th in silver. He's not going to prove or provide too much of an issue for Jamie Thacker unless the opportunity is clear and obvious. Cleveland's a little bit further back with Josh Clayton on the back of that in 17th. Clayton trying out that new BMW with limited success so far ahead of the new season. Yeah, Townsend there just getting it a little hot, but has it all under control. We will go to the lead battle just for the moment because there is a race overall, and this is kind of a story of what might have been. The Italian Fabio Travaglioni, a bit of illness and a bit of injury has kind of robbed him of a chance to take part in the Sunday series to quite the same level. He got himself involved in a couple of needless accidents earlier on in the season, but there was so much speed and so much in terms of potential for this to be a truly generational title battle at Bathurst. Certainly he got himself onto the front row and actually got himself ahead of Vermeulen before crashes on the mountain with lapped traffic. Didn't go his way, and then a little bit of illness and a little bit of injury to really curtail what was a promising season. But here is Jaron Vermeulen. He's now about 4 tenths of a second back, and he's going to try and pick his moments. He doesn't need to do anything silly, but he can afford to be a bit more aggressive. With Andrew Eden now holding back Daniel Crossman in what was a battle for the ages in race number 1, but Eden currently in the Lexus. He hasn't yet come across the tyre wear phase that you get with Lexus. It certainly seems to ruin its front left wherever it goes, and the Lexus dropping back to the tune of about a second a lap, isn't he? 5.6 seconds back, with Crossman beautifully following him behind at the moment. Steve Desert and Johnny Sharp making up the top 6. Michael Bristolli falling backwards as the Porsche has not been kind to him in races so far. Now, let's see if we can go back to the AM class battle, and looks like Greg Wood has got actually a bit of a lead now, a bit more of a lead over Darren Townsend. Townsend in 13th overall and in 2nd in the AM class, and Jamie Thacker's actually having to deal with Luke Richings. Thacker having drawn the short end of the stick in race number 1 when he got boofed by Greg Wood to spit him out of contention, and whilst the gap did close between them by 1 point, and with Jeffrey DeFast winning race number 1 in the AM class, he's now dropped way back. He's now 29th after going off and into the weeds on lap number 1. There's a further drop. That is Darren Davis and Vaclav Pospisil. Is it? No, it's Lee Colpitts has dropped once again to 34th, with Vaclav Pospisil in 35th. So those two getting together again for what would feel like the second time. And Harrison Miguel Silva got ahead of those two as well. Those drivers starting in the pit lane, and with Serafina Gavini, the only car that's even further back, having started on the race but being out of position. So starting infringement is what took him out of contention, because he had to serve the drive through at probably the longest pit lane possible, with the exception of Spa. It's certainly not a pit lane that you'd want to serve a drive through at, and it's made the Italian, who did have a chance of winning the Silver Championship, pay dearly. Now here's Jaron Vermeulen on the back of Fabio Travaglioni. Travaglioni, the Italian driver, getting the job done at this moment in time, who's again a bit of a Cantel season. If we could have had we could have had a battle between these two as well as Daniel Crossman. It could have been a titanic three-way battle between those three. Unfortunately not to be, but it's a bit of a taster possibly for next season. Travaglioni's made noises about wanting to come back, and this will certainly be the confidence boost he needs, with the Italian going defensive. Is he? No, Vermeulen's going to have a look down the inside going into turn number 12. Not quite going to work. He pulls out and goes to the outside to try and make a mistake there. He goes further around the outside there, because Travaglioni breaks and blocks his way through the final complex, which he's perfectly entitled to do. And now, can the South African get on terms with Fabio Travaglioli down the straight. The Italian driver, certainly under pressure. Daniel Crossman has once again just got past Andrew Eden going into the complexes. Vermeulen once again pulls out, but can't make the move. Now, Jamie Thacker has dropped back behind Luke Richings and Josh Clayton. I wonder if there's been a few issues, because there is a couple of marks on that Ford Mustang, but might actually be a bit of a blessing in disguise for the BMW to be ahead of the Ford, because Clayton, being the pro driver, being the faster driver, might be able to cause a bit of ruckus with Darren Townsend and Greg Wood. There's plenty of time left in this, so the BMW driver getting to grips with the BMW car, having driven the Ford Mustang throughout most of the race and being a long-time Aston Martin driver, he was able to change, because of his Patreon membership, he was able to change his car. Now, I'll talk to you about Patreon whilst we've got a little bit of time. Patreon is basically, I think you can pay £4 for a couple of extra perks. It helps the servers keep going, it helps the broadcasters do what we do, it helps us bring the championship to YouTube and the wider world. But for that, you get a choice, or you get to change your car without losing any positions in the championship, without losing any points once a season, and you are able to get early access to championships like the Taco Tuesday. I know that's filling up quickly for next season. Same with the Sunday Championship. They're all filling up, and that's mostly because of the Patreon drivers guaranteeing their spot on the grid. They get early access to that. No matter when you enter, if you are a Patreon driver, you get guaranteed access to any championship that you want to be in. You also get early access to service, your own testing service, and you can go and test whatever car that you want to without any kind of entry requirements or anything like that. You'll also get a custom-made profile picture on Discord from the man himself, Chris Gedman, who is having a bit of a rotten evening so far. He's got back up into 25th after earlier shenanigans in race number 1 took him well out of contention. Jeffrey DeFast, meanwhile, talking of being out of contention, back in 29th, and so well away from contention. He is about 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, I think, in the AM Championship, and again, not always able to put together the complete weekend, Jeffrey DeFast, and that ultimately is probably what's going to cost him, because going off into the weeds when he had such a chance to go and build on the victory earlier on, it's unfortunately cost him plenty of points and a little bit of silverware too. Now, Townsend at the moment is not making any inroads on Wood, but he's got Josh Clayton behind him. Clayton can get past, you can get after Wood and perhaps converge all of the AM drivers together, with Wood dropping back a little bit now from the cars ahead, and Townsend actually now gaining a bit more time there. It's 1.5 seconds. It was close towards 2 seconds, and Thacker now in 15th, driving with a slightly injured car, I think it's fair to say, but in 3rd position in class. If those two ahead can get together, then we'll see what happens with Townsend not gaining any time in Sector 2, but Clayton very much gaining time on the McLaren. Now, the BMW being driven by a quicker driver, I think it's fair to say, in the pro class, and Townsend won't mind me saying that, but also being driven by a quicker car in the straights. This might be, for the McLaren, a battle he can't always win. The McLaren is going to make a bit of a fist of it, though, coming off the final corner. He's going to have too much traction to be troubled by Clayton on this lap. Now, he's going to pull out to the inside, Clayton. He's not quite going to be able to get past, although you would suspect that is when and not if. Travaglioli, meanwhile, has been passed by Jared Vermeulen, but has been only for a split second. So Vermeulen will go back to the lead battle as we take a break from the AM Championship. A reminder that the Pro Championship, if you're just joining us, that was wrapped up by Jared Vermeulen in race number 1 with the dominant lights to flag victory. That has become his custom. He did have to work for it a little bit in that he spent the first lap behind somebody else, which is about as difficult as it gets for him at this moment in time. But when it did, and Daniel Crossman only able, I say only in inverted commas, able to finish 3rd. It's been a fantastic challenge from the young Englishman, but not able to take on the behemoth of Jared Vermeulen for the entire season. Gordon Brown has got ahead of Marco Brustilli, who's been very quick to point out that the Porsche has not been the easiest car to drive, and I think he's proving it here because the Porsche can be quite capricious. In any case, actually, you can see, yeah, not much traction there. It's normally the Porsche's strong point, isn't it? But not been the most forgiving car, certainly in the longer format races. It's tended to drop back a little bit further than in the sprint races, the 20-minute sprint races. He's got Renard Serfontaine behind him. Richard Gearman having dropped back, the Dutchman who's put together a really good season without quite having the results to show for it. Richard Gearman in 10th position. He has been on pole a couple of times in silver and then had a tendency to hit the wall a couple too many times, but it's been a really improved season from the Dutchman, who has been able to certainly show what we were talking about earlier in terms of the improvement of drivers. He's not always been the quickest driver, he's always been to the sharp ends. Off goes Daniel Grossman. He's rejoined back in front of Marco Bocelli. So Steve Desert now resumes third position. Andrew Eden is in fourth still, so Johnny Sharp behind him. I wonder if there might have been a bit of contact, but Grossman now dropping to seventh, with Renard Serfontaine and Marco Bocelli in close comfort. So I was just saying about Richard Gibbon, it's been real improvement, because there was a point where he was, again in the AM class, he was a little bit further back in that class, and he's bit by bit shown improvement and shown some good pace in that Ferrari to challenge for pole, and at one point challenge for the championship. It's not to be this season, but you can certainly be very pleased with his body of work as he leads now Michel van der Waal for the final silver podium, with van der Waal in 11th overall, a couple of seconds back. Greg Wood, meanwhile, has got a little bit more company, as he's Darren Townsend's got that gap back to within a second. And now we'll see whether the Aston Martin driver is starting to feel the nerves. Now, former commentator Greg Wood, so he's been able to talk and tell everybody about other drivers in this situation, but it's a lot different, as I can tell you, when you're in that situation. Darren Townsend has got the 10th. As soon as I get back to it, he drops the 10th in the final sector, with Josh Clayton now very much settling in behind in the Pro BMW. Won't be letting anybody through either, with Thacker having dropped back to, well, he's said dropped back to, he's always been in third position, but he's 3.5 seconds off the back. So that championship challenge looking possibly a little bit forlorn, unless there were shenanigans further ahead. Greg Wood still about a second or so clear of Darren Townsend, but they are starting to catch Michel van der Waal. Van der Waal and Gearman just ahead. Now, the gap was at one point about 4 seconds between van der Waal and Greg Wood. It's now 2.5, so might be a bit of watch this space as those three all converge behind the Dutchman. Van der Waal, driving injured. He actually revealed to somebody that he hadn't had the pace that he once had because he's driving with a shoulder injury, but he's still been driving for the love of sim racing, which is exactly what we want to see, and doing a good job he is, especially tonight. So wish him well in his recovery and hope he's getting a bit better. But yeah, fourth place, especially around this track where it's a very busy track, is to be commended. Now, Josh Clayton, sorry, I keep referring to him as the darts player, I'm sure you won't mind. Josh Clayton in 14th. He was 0.3 of a second back from Townsend, but look at the BMW, how much it loses compared to the McLaren in the final sector. Townsend was able to gain a little bit off Greg Wood, but he gained 0.7 over the BMW. Josh Clayton, who's getting a bit of youthful running in that BMW as he decides where he wants to drive in the next championship season. We'll go back to the lead battle once again, because Vermeulen's still half a second behind Travaglioni, who seems to have every which way covered. Now, there was only a time where Vermeulen led a sector. He was about 100th of a second clear in sector 1, wasn't he? A couple of laps back, but that's been about as good as it's got for the South African, who was beat to the punch in turn number 1 from pole position. That's Serafino Gavini, you can see in the background there. The Italians' championship challenge going up in smoke in race number 1, really in qualifying, to be honest with you. There is a bit of a gaggle ahead, isn't there, of drivers that are recovering from spins, crashes, collisions, that these, at this rate, they may catch to be a lap down. 17.5 minutes to go, what's that, about 10 minutes I would have thought. And Vermeulen is 17 minutes 10 laps, I should say. Vermeulen is now 6/10 of a second back, but just following the Italian as much as he possibly can, trying to see if he can force that mistake. Obviously, second place, he doesn't need to do anything. He's got the championship won. But if he can win it with another victory, or if he can go out with another victory, then it will send another message to everybody else that even when you think you can challenge him, he'll always find a way. Here's Siebler in third position. The Dutchman's gone under the radar because he's kind of in no man's land, but that's more a reflection how well he's done, that we've not needed to see an awful lot of him. He's in third position, and the Ferrari driver doing very well. He's put together a quick, sometimes inconsistent season so far this season, so Desert will be another man looking to improve his fortunes on Sundays next season, which I think is about 6 weeks away. And reading there in fourth in that Lexus, and very, very often he's been a bit of an interloper, isn't he? In fourth position in that Lexus. Certainly in the shorter races, longer races, the Lexus tends to tear its tyres up and tends to go backwards. Now, Johnny Sharp is in fifth ahead of Daniel Grossman. Grossman, who's a commentator actually on Taco Tuesdays for the second tier, so the Pro-Am and the Am tier. And a good job he's doing as well. He's often found on the Twitch, his own Twitch channel, but getting some various experience, valuable experience there, and he's doing a very good job indeed. So go and check out his championship channel, leave a comment asking where that is and he'll come back to you, I am sure. But the Formula Racing League YouTube channel for the comments on number one is actually, he goes up the inside, he's not just commentating, he's a pretty solid race driver too. Down the inside off the corner, and he's going to get Johnny Sharp. Sharp made just a little mistake at the final corner, and he's going to go back to the inside, Sharp, but no, not on this occasion, and that is fifth place once again. Daniel Grossman, the Englishman, able to get ahead of Johnny Sharp, and Grossman now. I was just saying about the Taco Tuesday comms, they are also found every Tuesday on 8:30, and a brilliant championship battle it is for that as well, coming up at 8:30 this coming Tuesday. That's brought to you by the effervescent Italian that is Andrea Mattavelli, who's been incredible really, commentating in what is his second language. He's been commentating in English and doing it really well. Now, a little bit of a battle for the lead of Silver. Obviously, Renard Serpentine having wrapped up the championship in that second of the two Ferraris that you see there in the darker Ferrari. Wrapped up the championship with second place earlier on, and the South African was a deserving winner that day, as Greg Wood has dropped back behind Darren Townsend. So he's got off somewhere, because Darren Townsend is still ahead of Josh Clayton, and that was the mistake that I mentioned earlier. He's now back ahead of Jamie Thacker. Thacker's under pressure himself from Luke Richings. The admin, though, not getting involved needlessly, trying to see if he can get past it without being too forceful. And Alexander Kalugin into 16th is just a little bit further back. But Greg Wood, having dropped back now behind both Clayton and Townsend. Townsend's on for a double win, which is a great achievement and would be the story thereabouts most of the time. But the Aston Martin driver making a mistake, and he's not infallible, is he? He's going to set off after Townsend and Clayton and try to see if he can get any positions back. But if he loses another position to Thacker, you would fancy that that is Thacker's championship, with Thacker now having quite rightly a little bit annoyed with the shenanigans from earlier on. Would, to his credit, admitting fault, but it's a bit of a red rag to a bull now, and Thacker now gaining. He's gained another couple of tenths in the final sector in that Ford Mustang. Now he's going to get after the Aston Martin, and the battle for the AM Championship is once again going to go to the wire. If these two are together on the final lap, watch for the fireworks. With Jared Vermeulen now, we'll come back to that shortly. Jared Vermeulen now half a second back from Fabio Travaglioli. That's the battle for the lead in Pro, and they're coming up to Serafino Capino and a couple of other AM drivers and stragglers from earlier on. Renard Serpentine is half a second thereabouts, just over, behind Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown showing really what he could have done had he avoided injury, a couple of crashes. So 7th overall for Brown, but the lead of the silver class. So Gordon Brown showing really what might have been, as they're both getting away from Mark Limbrush-Tully and both catching Johnny Sharp. Sharp having dropped back by a couple of seconds. It's Daniel Grossman who's set off once again after Andrew Eden. Grossman has been looking at the back of Andrew Eden for a long time, and certainly through both races, it's going to be a bit of deja vu for the Umbritas Eden there. Plodding along in 4th position, but a good job he's doing as well, because that Lex is one of the more difficult cars to drive, apart from in a straight line. It's been a good calendar for it with the with Monza and with Indianapolis, but you have to work really, really hard at places like Solden, and he's done really well at those tracks to keep himself in the hunt. Marco Brustulli is in 9th. He's got 10 or 11 seconds on Michel van der Waal. There's been further strife, hasn't there, because he was not alone. It's Richard Gearman. Where's Richard Gearman? And once again, Richard Gearman has dropped back when he didn't need to, and you can see there's damage to that Ferrari. And what I was saying a little bit earlier on, if you can add a bit of consistency, there's a cracking racing driver in there at silver level, because once again, from leading a race, he's dropped back to what I would say is, well, not leading, he was third, wasn't he? But what I would say is about 6th or 7th. It's Basler in 17th. Overall, just ahead. The German not having one of his finest races. You can see there's more crunched in, bashed in car there. Greg Wood has been able to get a gap on Jamie Thacker once again. And now he's going to get involved with Clayton and with Townsend. So Greg Wood in the Aston Martin in 13th. He's the second back. Now, what do you do? If it was me, I would try and just stay with them. I wouldn't try and overtake them, because they're not going any slower than you, and then, well, they're not going any slower certainly than Jamie Thacker. So if you would, you try keep as much of a sensible option as you possibly can. But Townsend actually going slightly wide, now having to fight off the attractions of Josh Clayton. The BMW right in his wheel tracks though, a good couple of tenths behind. Now, is he going to be able to make good on that BMW power with the McLaren? You can see Woods now looking at this thinking, oh, actually, this might suit me. Here comes Josh Clayton. Is he going to pull out from behind the McLaren? He isn't. He's not able to get down there. He is. He's going to have a late move down the inside. Goes Josh Clayton, not for position in class, but for position on racetrack. Good move from Josh Clayton. Sensible driver from Darren Townsend as well. And Townsend relinquishes 11th, but retains the lead of the AM class. But what it has done is put Greg Wood right behind him. Now, you've got a bit of a choice to make, Greg, because you can either try and get past Townsend, you can try and give Townsend a real run for his money, or you sit behind and hope that Thacker doesn't catch you, because if you make one wrong move on Townsend, that could be your championship done. We'll have a little look at this throughout the race, but we'll go back to the lead battle just for the moment, and we'll keep an eye on 12th and 13th, because that could be key. Jared Vermeulen, meanwhile, they get a few of the lead lapped cars. Now Serafino Gabino, that's Lee Colbert, and that's car 87 behind. Car 87 is James O'Leary. Dreadlock Steve also having had a difficult race, has dropped back, so that'll be the laps drivers that are getting involved with now. And car number 12, that's Max Aurelian Basler. He's got a track limits penalty. We'll have to keep an eye on that too, with Wood being car number 11. It's 7, 9 and 11, the three that you're looking at for the AM odders. And there's Townsend now going through the final corner, having to stave off the attentions of Wood, who's not been able to sit with him. And I think that might actually be the best way if he doesn't sit with him, because with Thacker behind only a consistent 2-second gap, you don't really want to be wiggling your wheels at people if you don't have to. And Wood has certainly done enough of that from race number 1. I think he'll be the first to admit. Now going into turn number 1, right behind Darren Townsend, and Townsend trying to hold on for what would be a double victory. We'll make plenty of fuss about that as and when that is confirmed, because it's a great achievement in such an evenly matched AM class to be able to do that. So Townsend really showing a marker for next season if he is still in the AM Championship. A sneaky feeling he might move up into silver. But that will be all to do with driver rating on SimGrid and the like. Now, we'll see if the battle for the lead is any closer to changing hands. That's Jared Vermeulen. He is in second position, and he is half a second back from Fabio Trapaglioni. Trapaglioni, you've got a better style, got a better launch, you've got a better braking into turn number 1 has been able to keep him at bay, but these two getting away from Steve Desert at a rate of nearly a second lap. Desert in third, 17 seconds off the pace, and Andrew Eden is going to be greeted once more to the sight of Daniel Crossman in his crosshairs behind, with Crossman having fought him earlier on before passing and then making a mistake, and Crossman having fought for third position in race number 1 earlier with Andrew Eden. So they're ahead of Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown's just coming up to, that might be James O'Leary. It is James O'Leary. So Crossman there, not Crossman, O'Leary getting out of the way nicely there. That's good driving from man. He's had a difficult start to his Formula Racing League career, but he's acquitted himself well. What is a really tough championship to get involved in. That's Renault Serpentine in second in silver, 7th overall, and the champion, as it was crowned earlier on in race number 1, South African, a well-deserved champion, it must be said, and able to flex his muscles and see if he can still have a race for the lead of silver. We go back once again to the battle for the lead of AM, because Darren Townsend's not got a dog in the fight for the AM championship, but Greg Wood is leading Jamie Thacker by a point, and Wood would quite like to get past and maybe increase his advantage over Thacker. But if he does make a mistake, if he makes one more foul move on Darren Townsend, then it could be curtains for his championship. Wood, though, has 2.5, 3 seconds nearly on Jamie Thacker, who's kept Lee Richings behind him remarkably well throughout most of this race. Thacker in third position. He had a terrible start, didn't he, in the championship? Got booted out of the leading Kyle Lamy. Had further difficulties in Bathurst with other drivers, really. It wasn't anything to do with him, to be completely honest with you. So to get back into championship contention and be in a position where he's only 2 points behind, he's done remarkably well. Here's Wood having a look on the inside of Darren Townsend. It's Marcel Barca coming in to serve his drive-through penalty at the longest of pit lanes. So the German, his progress rather stunted by that. Now, Wood's got a bit of a decision to make. If he misjudges the braking zone even slightly, then he loses out to Thacker, and I would suggest loses the championship, because they would then go to level on points. And I think Thacker has won as many races, if not more, than Wood, although we'll have a little look at that, and there'll still possibly be some repercussions from earlier on. Now, Thacker behind is under pressure still from Luke Richings. Richings is a couple of tenths behind, with Alexander Kalugin remaining in 16th. As wide goes Townsend. Wide goes Townsend. Now Wood's going to have a look at potentially leading the AM class. He's not able to do so because Townsend is able to cover through the S's. Can't really pass through there unless you've got a significant pace advantage, and it's not one that Wood had. Now 0.3 of a second behind Townsend. He's going to have another look, is he? Going through the oval. Jamie Thacker has lost out to Luke Richings, so that will be a bit of solace to Greg Wood. I think it might be the kicker to maybe back out, because he's got 4.5 seconds on Jamie Thacker, and no material gain apart from a win to passing Darren Townsend. That might be Miguel Silva coming into the pits. It is Miguel Silva. It's a Luxembourg driver competing. Pretty miserable evening for him, starting with the pits. Now down the inside goes Greg Wood. He's still going for the lead. I'm not sure of the wisdom of this, because whilst all drivers want to win, if he stays in second, he's got the championship won, done and dusted, because he would gain a point on Jamie Thacker. Thacker in 15th, but third in the AM class, denoted by the fact that it is red. Jared Vermeulen, meanwhile, has taken the lead. So Travaglioli has held on for 36 minutes. Couldn't hold on for the 37th, the 38th and the 39th, and the South African driver restores order once again. But that's not the battle, really, because whilst it's lovely to look at the lead drivers, the one that's important is the battle for the AM Championship. Now, Greg Wood is trying to see if he can get another position on Darren Townsend. Townsend's not had the pace compared to Wood, but he has had the car position and the positional sense. The Pink Panther in the McLaren is looking to hold on to what would be a rather famous double victory for him. It's not come around for him very often, so when he takes, if he can get the chance, why not take it? He's 0.3 clear of Wood. Wood looking a little bit desperate, although not to the point where he's launching any silly moves. I don't think it's wise to be coming out. He can phone it in effectively, because with Vermeulen and Travaglioli, this will be the 2 laps from the end when they cross the line. Vermeulen and Travaglioli are on the back straight, so they won't you wouldn't have thought, get there in time to complete another. But even if they do, he's got 4.5 seconds on Jamie Thacker, so it's all about being careful. But Wood, is he going to heed that advice? But he can't hear me. Is he going to take a look down the inside? He is going to have a look down the inside once again, because he's decided that he wants to win, as Alexander Kalugin has another look at Jamie Thacker. So Thacker's dropping back to 16th. Not going to matter in terms of the AM Championship, but Thacker back in 16th. There's another car between him and Greg Wood as Luke Richings and Alexander Kalugin get away from the Englishman, who's put up a fantastic fight to get himself back in. It cannot be stressed enough how well Jamie Thacker has done to get back in after what was a terrible first couple of rounds, where everyone that could hit him, every car that could hit him, did hit him. And to get back into the championship picture, especially with a couple of double victories as well, did really well at Nürburgring as well to bring it home. And the Englishman can be royally pleased with how he's gone about fighting back. 1.5 minutes to go of the season, the SuperSprint Sunday season. And Wood now, is he going to butt in? No, he's going to have another go. He's looking certainly to try and see if he can get past. Townsend might go defensive. Wood's going to go to the inside to see if he can get the run. And Greg Wood is going to take the lead, and that might just be a championship winning move. Down the inside he goes, going into turn 12. They both go wide. Wood tries to block the pass. He can block the run of Townsend. And Darren Townsend, it's not going to be a double victory, but it's going to be a first and a second, you would think, with, a minute to go. That might be the final minute of the championship, because Townsend has been passed by Greg Wood, and Wood is going to increase his championship gain by 2 points, which might come in handy if there's any penalties to come from later on. Now, Greg Wood takes the lead of the AM class and takes the lead of the championship, so strengthens his lead of the championship. Wood to cap off what's been a remarkable season. He's been very, very consistent, Greg Wood, the former commentator, and you can only be pleased for him that he's been able to get back into the car, having had so long out of it. Now, Jared Vermeulen is going to, I think, turn around the final corner for the final time. The South African has got a second on Fabio Travaglioni, but it is all he's going to need to wrap up another double victory and bring home the championship in style. Fabio Travaglioni gives us a hint of what might have been crashing into everybody at the end by hitting the wall, and that's Owen Harris taken as well, but that doesn't matter. Travaglioni will finish in second to provide a reminder of what could have been. Steve Desert is in third, gained a few seconds at the end, with Andrew Eden in fourth ahead of Gordon Brown. Danny Crossman actually went off, so Gordon Brown is going to round off his silver season with a double victory, and great drive from the Flying Scotsman, who will rue the injury that he suffered earlier on in the season. Bernard Serfontaine will take fifth position ahead of Michael Rushtilly, and Neil Crossman is going to finish in seventh and crashes into all and sundry with Johnny Sharp and Josh Clayton in ninth and 10th ahead of Michel van der Waal. And Greg Wood is going to come across the line to win the AM Class Championship as well as the second race, and it's thoroughly deserved. It's been a monumentally consistent season from the Englishman. The former commentator steps out of the gantry and into the booth. It was a great challenge from Darren Townsend to finish in second. Jamie Thacker can be so pleased to take second in the standings and third overall. The Englishman doing remarkably well to get into the AM Championship contention after such an unlucky start to the season. He's in 15th behind Luke Richings and Alexander Kalugin. Richard Gibbon is next across the line ahead of Jordan Marshall and Wouter Heymans, with Fayan Kruger and Chris Gepman next in what will be 19th and 20th officially. Jack Barnett finishing 21st and in 5th in class 22nd. We can see now with Travaglioni leaving. Terry Tierney was in 23rd. The Irishman rounding off a strong debut campaign in the Silver Championship ahead of Jeffrey DeFasse, who threw it all the way, really, didn't he, in race in the opening laps of the second race. He won race number one when all the sundry were gliding and crashing into each other, but not able to make it stick. He gets back into 24, so a good job there from the Belgian, who will finish in third in the championship. Now, Kelleher is in 25th ahead of Matty Lemon. Michael Coppens 27th ahead of Owen Harris and Vaclav Pospisil, who all hit problems. Marcolino recovered from a pit lane start as well as Serafino Gabino and Marcel Bastley, Colpitts, Darren Mark Davies, Dreadlock Steve, James O'Leary, Miguel Silva and Morgan Grace round out the 38 finishes. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a plethora of drivers. I'm going to start with the man of the moment. That is Jaron Vermeulen. Vermeulen, it was one of those really that you just had to sort of get over the line. You didn't really have to do a lot special, but it's just about, rather than overthink what you have to do, I guess it's just a case of keep it clean and do what you do.
Yeah. I mean, tonight's race was, pretty good. And everything. Had a good battle with Travioli there, but we had a coming together, I think, with 4 minutes to go. That kind of sealed the deal for us in that race. But yeah, overall it was just a nice way to finish off the season, really. Some good racing, and it was good.
Congratulations once again. I'll skip straight to the AM champion. That is Greg Wood. Greg, formerly of the commentary box, how difficult is it to go from talking about people doing scenarios to actually being in those scenarios and trying to get things over the line?
Turns out very difficult, because I believe we're still pending a student investigation of myself with the man who currently stands in second. So I have not wrapped this up just yet. But I've thoroughly enjoyed the season. I tried my absolute best this evening. It was very difficult. The Aston Martin was loosey-goosey in the middle sector. Very difficult to get a hold of. I fell into a bit of trouble midway through the race, the second race at least. And we had a car spin out in front of me in Townsend. I took one way, he took another way, and he got past me. And we might have seen on the final lap also that I managed to get back past him, so that was a relief. But I think a lot is still to be said about race one. I tried my best, got taken out first corner, recovered a few laps later, just couldn't stop in time to avoid Thacker. I did wait for him, hope that's taken into consideration, but so I couldn't say 100% certainty if I'm champion yet, but I gave it my absolute best, and mathematically, at least for the time being, I am.
Well done, once again. It's always difficult, isn't it? I'm not going to pretend I don't know what you're on about, because we showed it. So please accept my apologies on that one. We're going to throw to the double winner now of the Silver Championship, in terms, certainly for this race, if not quite the Silver Champion. Gordon, it was just a case of so near, but yet so far. Is it one of those seasons that you just sort of rue perhaps a little bit of bad luck, and obviously your rock climbing injury didn't help? Is it just a case of sort of taking the positives and trying to move forward, or are you going to sort of look back at it and think, maybe I could have done something in the Silver Championship?
Yeah, I mean, reflection is always a good way to look back on it. I want to sit. It wasn't actually rock climbing, that actually had nothing to do with it. I would have persevered through. I had a power cut last week, immediately after qualifying, which took me completely out of gaining any points for my drop round. So that's actually what happened last week. But I'm looking back to Bathurst when I binned it in race 1 from the lead, and Zolder where I underfueled in race 2 and had to pit from the lead. Those are big scoring points that I've dropped tonight that definitely has cost me the championship, but those are me errors, not anything I can blame on anyone else, so that's just something to take away. And yeah, a bit more preparation, a bit more level head when you're leading at Bathurst would have seen the championship, I think. But yes, fair play to Surfy. He's done brilliant tonight. He was infallible in race 1. I've done everything I could to push him back into the car behind to try and cause an incident or something. Just trying my best to back him up in the twisty sections. But I think Johnny Sharp, who was just behind him, wanted nothing to do with the silver title battle. Both of them just sat at 0.5 behind each other with no interest in fighting. So yeah, nothing I could do at that point. But yeah, you know what? It's been a fantastic season. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. I don't suspect I'll have a silver nameplate next to my name next season. I've already been told 3 times in chat today that I'm getting moved up. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, no, but it's been good. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Yeah.
We'll see you in pro next season. I'm going to throw to Chris, obviously. Chris, bit of a difficult evening to round off a season that's actually seen quite a lot of positives from yourself. Talk us through tonight from your perspective.
Well, I had to qualify at least mid-table tonight to have a good chance. That didn't happen. Race 1, finished near the back of the grids after making up to mid-pack, which would have been a really, really good opportunity to get some essential points to at least finish in the podium for the season. Again, race 1 just never happened. I span out myself, human error. So I bottled it on the night when it needed to happen. Race 2 was far better for me. A little bit of consistency, and then for about 22 minutes I think I was just in limbo, just doing my own laps, and finished 8th in class. So I don't know if I've done enough. The only person I really want to be ahead of is Richings. So if you're listening, Richings, if I'm ahead of you, that'll be an even if it's by 1 point, it's getting rubbed right in, because I'm genuinely a pro-am on DR points, looking at DR scoring, but I usually run in silver, and I've done really well this season, so I've kind of put a wee spanner in the mix. And I think at one point, maybe race 4 or 5, race day 5, I was maybe up there in 2nd place or 3rd place until Gogs decided to show up, well, and ruin my life.
Well,
but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a fantastic season.
well done all of you for your respective seasons. Obviously, we can't confirm with Greg, even if there is a fair bit of certainty around the others. It just remains for me to say, obviously, what a season it's been to commentate on, and thank you for everybody who's been watching. Thank you for everybody who's entrusted me with this. And we'll see you again next season. Thank you so much.
Just very quickly, could I, just before you go off, before you round it up, sorry for cutting you off.
No, crack on.
I just want to let everyone know very quickly that the sign-ups for season 22 are going to go live in about 60 seconds time. And I'm going to put a link on the Discord already. So it's first come, first served. It's been incredibly attended this season. We've had about 9 or 8, 10 reserves looking to race every single week, and they just cannot get in. So it's first come, first served, and we do get enough sign-ups. We're going to potentially open a second server, but it depends on who signs up. So yeah, that's going live in about 60 seconds from now.
Look forward to seeing a second server if we possibly can. But well done once again, and thank you so much to all of you for joining me throughout the last 7 weeks. Just remains for me to say I've been Jack Prentice, and I will see you all next season.